It's a completely different way of working with clients when you say, we've got all the numbers and we've heard you, and let's put those together. And let's use those, both of those, who you are, what you care about, what's most important to you, plus the financial analytics. Let's use those to make the best decisions for you. Private Ocean has always led with financial planning. And we find it consistently makes a real difference in the decisions clients make. We first get to know clients very well. We have a good shared understanding of what's important to them, what their values are, what they care most about. And we use that information to really have a context for all the financial decisions they make.
I find that the most powerful part of the financial planning process is the discovery meeting. It's an opportunity to really connect with a client, understand what's important to them, understand their experiences in life that have gotten to them to where they are today, the dynamic of their family, the character of the people, whether they're children or parents, what makes them passionate and get up every day with the ambition to do what they want to do in life, what's important in their career. These are really powerful things that, for me, help us, myself, my colleagues, drive the financial plan.
We have a process that we've established when we work with new clients. We understand where they've come from, where they are financially, where they want to be in the future. And that's impactful. Having that context really guides all the work that we do.
It starts with open-ended questions without judgment or any preconceived notions of what we think the answer might be. That conversation can be pretty thorough, can be sometimes emotional, can be very valuable to developing a partnership. The discovery discussion peels back the aspects of their life that are really important to them, and it begins to set the foundation for how to structure the financial plan properly.
So in this case, we were asking about, the question was, what was money like for you growing up? And in this case, we'd asked the wife, and then we asked the husband, who had been quieter in that first meeting. He'd heard from a really young age that there was not enough money, and he'd heard that repeated for years. So us having that information really informed the way that we work with them, both in terms of building models with them, but going forward. So where his spouse coming in the door felt a high degree of confidence that they were okay financially, he did not have that same confidence.
So the discussion ideally is a deep discussion around past, present, and future, but there are limits at times, and we're going to accommodate people's preferences for sharing personal information. And there'll usually be consistencies when you're talking about the present, because they're sharing their life together. And then the future, it's actually a really powerful conversation because we begin to see what they see for themselves 5 years out, 10 years out, full life expectancy out, and what's important to them around their family, if they have children or other loved ones, or if they have charitable interests that they want to engage in.
We often ask, what's your investment experience been like? What's worked really well for you? And conversely, what hasn't worked really well for you? Many of us are ready to tell you about our investment success and to share with you how great it was when that piece happened, and maybe not as ready to share what didn't go well. So understanding when those times were and what the decisions were that led up to it is pretty impactful, and it colors how we make recommendations for portfolios going forward.
So from discovery, we learn a lot of the qualitative aspects of their life, basically their life mission. That then leads us into the next step in the financial planning process called capital needs. And capital needs essentially is creating models, financial models, that give us and the client some sense on the path that they're headed in. And those models are reviewed every single year. In that review, we essentially look at 4 categories: assets, liabilities, income sources, and expenses. And we generate a projection which illustrates, are they on a sustainable path? Given their lifestyle today and their spending habits, can they sustain that? How much risk is needed? How much return is needed? Bottom line, are we gonna run out of money? Is there a risk there? Risk tolerance is more of your perception, a person's perception of risk. Risk capacity is far more quantitative. What's necessary? They have investment resources. Do they need a high rate of return? Or in light of their circumstances, do they not need a high rate of return because they have substantial risk capacity? They have the capacity basically not to worry about the rate of return.
So we may have a client that has a wide capacity to take financial risk, but emotionally, they can't do it. So to get them the best portfolio for them, let's look at the two. And if they can take really as much or as little risk as they want, and they don't want to take much risk, let's not take much risk. Conversely, if they are really comfortable with risk, they can take as much as they want, they're not going to use the money anyway. It's ultimately going to go to the next generation. Let's be more aggressive with that portfolio. And what this allows us to do is help clients avoid decision risk, which is when markets go down, that desire to take action by selling to cash or selling to something more conservative at the wrong time.
We find that a lot with our older clients, that they have substantial peace of mind by holding cash. They're essentially losing 3% of their purchasing power every year. But that's outweighed by the peace of mind. Well, holding cash, is that going to be something that puts your financial plan at risk? If it's a substantial amount of cash, it might. But if it's a smaller amount of cash or some amount that's reasonable, we're okay with that. Debt, on the other hand, is a different consideration. Interest rates are very low, and the cost of borrow is very low. So for some clients, it's advantageous to actually hold on to debt. Our goal is to understand those decisions, share with them the pros and cons, weigh those, enlighten them if they have misunderstood some of the aspects of those pros and cons, and to help them understand the impact of decisions.
Change is a reality of life. It's just going to happen. We don't know when necessarily, we don't necessarily know how, but it's just part of the world. So when changes in life happen, when changes in markets happen, we always come back to the foundation of the financial models. And they're really informative. So for example, 2008, 2009 happens. Markets are down 50%. The headlines are screaming, get out now, sell now, and you're crazy if you're in. This is practically Armageddon. So consistently with all of our clients in this period of time, we revisited the models with them to say, this is all happening out here, but what does it mean to you? And consistently we found that it meant next to nothing for our clients who were already on a sustainable path. And the reason it meant next to nothing is because we had planned for the reality that the markets were going to go down. We knew they would go down at some point. No one knows when.
Throughout the course of a year or years into the future, events happen in life. Some are planned, some are not. When we're engaged in a relationship that starts with a deep understanding of their personal values and the people that are important to them in their lives or the organizations that are important to them, we're much more adept at being able to provide the right advice at that time and point in time when there's a new event in their life. Whether it's a career transition, the sudden loss of a loved one, a new passion that they've discovered, a place they want to travel to. Revisiting the financial plan in light of those new facts and circumstances is a really powerful exercise to hopefully revalidate that they're on a strong financial path going forward.
So one client that I can think of specifically, she had a set of mortgages and she had always had a plan to pay them off at a certain date, at a certain year. And that was always part of our discussions. We always approached it knowing that was important to her, that she pay them off. When the time came, here we were in this low interest rate environment. So there were a number of things that we could do to really maximize return and take advantage of the interest. So we, of course, felt compelled to explore what those were and to share those with her, to say, we've heard you say really clearly for many years that your plan is to pay off the mortgage, and we support that. It's also really important that you know there's this potential economic benefit that you could take advantage of by not paying them off. And here's what that would look like. Here's what it would look like logistically. Here's what it might look like in terms of the actual dollars. And she was then in a position to say, I'm informed. And I'm in a financial position to pay off this debt if I want to. Both work for her. And she decided to pay it off. And that's the right decision for her. So that's a really great example of the right economic decision is keeping those mortgages in place. But the right economic and personal decision for her was paying them off. And we fully supported her in doing that. That was great.
So let me provide an example of a recent client that works for a public company. He's a very, very senior executive and has been there a number of years. And he had an enormous amount of company stock on the balance sheet. Yet when he approached us and we started to learn about his circumstances, it was pretty clear he wasn't contemplating the actual risk involved with that public company stock and his investment assets. His perception was that he wanted a lot of market risk, wanted to partner with Private Ocean to establish a portfolio that provided a high rate of return. And he was quite unaware, surprisingly, of the risk inherent in that single stock. We started first with having a better understanding of his financial balance sheet. And that began with building financial models, as we do with every client, understanding all the assets that are on the balance sheet. What that led to was structuring his assets with Private Ocean in a more conservative way. So through that discussion and looking at capital needs, actually what resulted was a lower risk portfolio that Private Ocean managed for him to accommodate for all the risk that was built in the single company stock. The experience at Private Ocean is unique. There are no silos or groups within the company that have more clout than other groups. It's not a culture of competition. It's a culture of support. It's a culture of learning, of curiosity. And all of that translates into a better experience, in our opinion, for the client.
The culture at Private Ocean internally really mirrors the way we work with our clients too. We work in partnership. We have a lot of really great minds, and it doesn't make sense to have one mind applying strictly to these 20 clients and another mind applying strictly to these other 20 clients. So we firmly believe and practice collaboration. Recently, the laws changed around Social Security and when you can claim Social Security. So there was one person that dug into the rules and understood them from top to bottom, and then we applied them. By client, by client, by client. So not only are we providing consistent advice, but it's based on this common collaborative discussion and conclusions. New things come across our desks, new things come into our offices every day. And our ability to put our 7 advisor brains together in a room and work on solving a problem, that's impactful. And that's one of the wonderful benefits of being with a firm that has a collaborative team and has a culture where people work together with the same goal of giving clients the best experience.
A part of the planning process I personally enjoy is building the financial models. And not so much building them, but understanding and seeing what they project out. When you consider the inputs around assets, liabilities, income sources, and expenses, you build this model and factor in certain events that the client anticipates or desires, and pushing that magic button, the calculation that it runs, and to see, are they on a sustainable path? And it's so wonderful to be able to share the path that they're projected to be on, and to be able to spot the opportunities that they have to either take advantage of the path that they're on, or to make accommodations or changes in their plan to improve the path that they're on.
There is gobs of information out there, just tons of it about finance. Then we have the media that is constantly telling us headlining information that's typically suggesting you do things that are not at all in your best interest. And then we have the marketing of big financial corporations and those marketing financial products. You take all this information, you take the media telling you things that aren't helpful for your financial success, then you have millions of marketing dollars telling you that you've got to work with them to get the magic sauce. And one of my favorite things is helping clients just wade through all that noise and BS to say, oh, you can just ignore all of that, because this is where it really is, and this is straightforward, and this is real, and this is what's going to make a difference in your lives. There's so many things about the work that I do that I love. And one of those things is working with clients and having clients feel a willingness, an importance of sharing information about themselves. So I get to be in the position where I get to know clients, I get to hear things that many times they're not talking about with anyone else in their lives. I combine that with over time understanding who they are. We combine that with the financial analytics. I just love the puzzles of mathematics. They're just a lot of fun. But getting to combine those two and ultimately see the impact, and the impact of clients making decisions that are right for them. And even more than that, to see clients in the world doing what they said was really important to them 5 years ago is tremendously satisfying. And to see them realize things that maybe didn't feel possible, maybe it wasn't even on their radar many years ago, but it's on their radar and they're doing it the way they want to do it, and they're not worried about money. They just have a peace of mind around it. That's magic. So we found time and again, with I'd say virtually every client, that if we just look at the numbers and make financial decisions based exclusively on that, maybe they'll work out and maybe they won't. When we work with clients and we're helping them make financial decisions based on the numbers and based on the emotions, the preferences, the goals, what's most important to them, then we know that they're making the best decisions for them. We're confident we're doing what's in our clients' best interest. We are. That's why I love doing what I do. That's why I do it for Private Ocean.